Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to my fellow members for your considerable work over the past several months, and appreciate it very much. Let's start with the approval of the minutes of the June 26th meeting. Are there any changes or corrections?
I distributed the minutes electronically to you all, but I unfortunately failed to bring copies for today for the audience, but I will obviously can distribute them after they're approved, if we approve them.
Okay.
And I did review, and I'm willing to move that they be approved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. Let's go to the financial report. Jeffrey again.
Sure. I have financial reports to distribute. These are actually for 2 months of invoices because we had just an executive session and then we skipped a month. You'll see that it's our usual types of invoices. The most important thing to note is that we have a cash balance of $63,283 at the end of this period. Sure. And we are full up on our insurance, and we've made our third installment of 4 to our web host company, Factory 44. There's one more payment due on that initial contract to them. But other than that, everything's in order, and we're still working on the year 1 money, and as you know, we're going to talk a little while about the year 2 money.
Okay.
When we get to the MOU.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions.
Everybody good? All right. Thank you, Jeffrey. I'm going to combine the next 3 items on the agenda into one report from me. And it's talking about our work session that produced the agreement for draft agreement for the city. And just give you a little update on that. If you'll remember, the authority went into executive session and worked on the agreement, and we were able to deliver a draft to the mayor the end of August. And just a little bit about what that draft included. There were points as outlined in the act that we included in there, just kind of reiterating what the act said and our processes, outcomes, and responsibilities. And then we added some additional items on economic development and community development, which the authority felt needed to be addressed for the future of Harrisburg. And then there's also a section in there, if you look at the act, there's a pretty dramatic clause in there as far as what action we could take if the city didn't do anything. We all felt that was like, oh my God, why would we ever do that? So we tried to come up with something that lessened that pain, but still gave us something that we could do if the city didn't comply with something. So we kind of made that ease up a little bit. So I was pleased that we were able to do that too. We were fortunate to have have a copy of Philadelphia's agreement, and they were kind enough to share that as well as their process with us. So it's good that we weren't starting from scratch, and that was a good basis for us to start our draft with. It was a good session, working session for all of us, and I appreciate all your input on that. As I said, we delivered it to the mayor. We chose not to release the draft to the public in order to give the mayor and his folks a chance to work through it, for the mayor to come back to us, so we all worked through it, and then we would release the final agreement after that.
I do want to mention that we did receive a request from the city council president to provide a copy of the draft. So we did fulfill that obligation, even though we didn't release it to the public.
Right.
To transmit just a single copy to the council president.
Okay, good. Thank you for doing that. Mayor and I had a nice conversation on Friday. I'm going to paraphrase. If I say anything wrong, let me know. They got the agreement. They're working on it. They're going to be back to us in the near future. And we both see no reason why we can't work through it and get this thing wrapped up so that we can move on to get us out of Act 47. So I think all is good there. So we'll wait to hear back from Mayor Pappenfuse.
I could add, if appropriate, that we have a work session scheduled for, executive session scheduled with City Council for next Wednesday to discuss it with the whole body. And that's sort of what we're waiting on now. We haven't had a chance to get all of their input yet. That was the earliest that we could schedule it. And so by the end of next week, we'll know more. And we'll have a formal response back to you, certainly within the next few weeks.
Perfect. That'd be great. Thank you. And we also have there were some exhibits that were missing, and have we forwarded those?
I don't know if we provided me. Jeff's working on it.
Not yet?
Okay.
Well, I think we provided those amongst us.
Amongst ourselves.
And we were going to talk about those a little bit, if there needs to be any updating to them or whatever. Some of those were fairly standard forms, and some of them I actually got from Philadelphia.
That's right. So it's, Attorney Engel is correct. Right now, it's still amongst the group reviewing the draft. We haven't officially transmitted them. And it's 2 exhibits, I believe. It's a cover for the extraordinary contract, should those occur. And then the second thing, I think, was a legal document. And so those will get transmitted shortly.
Okay.
Those are the 2 exhibits that were not with the draft when we originally delivered it.
So within the next couple of days, we'll see.
Yeah, I think we're just collecting everybody's comments. Actually, I think we have that. We just need to incorporate.
I think you might have
Yeah, when
heard
you
from
say
everybody.
2 exhibits, it's actually 2 covers
Oh,
and a form,
Okay.
legal document.
Okay.
3 things.
Extreme of.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me. I appreciate it. That's
Sorry.
all right.
I
want to be
want
accurate.
somebody to think that
Okay.
we didn't get that.
So in the next few days, we'll
Yes,
send those.
we'll
and
transmit those.
Our draft will be complete.
Correct.
Okay, great. Does anybody on the authority want to say anything about the agreement or share any additional thoughts?
Okay, just awaiting the city's comments.
Yeah, great. All right, thank you. We must approve a revised MOU with DCED. In our original agreement for financing, it wasn't totally correct in how we get our future funding. We've now got that. It was sent to everyone, correct? And we'd like to sign that and get it back to DCD, so I will ask for a motion to sign that MOU. Thanks, Steve. Second?
Second.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I will, it'll be executed, and I will scan it, and I will return it to DCED, and then following that, now I will put in the formal request for the year 2 funding, because that was the holdup that was sort of, so now that we have that approved, we can ask formally ask for the year 2 funding. for the
Okay.
state.
Great.
That's okay with you?
I received that.
The first one or the amendment?
I don't think the amendment.
Okay, I'll make sure you do it.
Okay.
I mean, I can't vote on it, but just for documentation.
Actually, who has it right now?
I had it in my hand.
Can we just
You want to
show
show
us?
us?
Here, actually, the amendment's not really,
It's
I
pretty
think it's an
simple.
amendment, it's kind of,
Yeah, they sent it to Jeff, so I didn't have it.
we did it in crayon, actually. No,
Okay, we'll move on. Give Bruce a chance to look at that. So thank you for that. We've been through the audit process, our RFP for our audit. We have an auditor we've selected. We need to approve that auditor. So Jeffrey, you want to?
Right, we have we went out to RFP, we ended up receiving 2 proposals from 2 firms. I met and interviewed both firms. It's the recommendation of the committee to proceed. I hope I pronounced this correctly. Zelenkowski and Axelrod, okay, which everybody knows is a very major firm in our area. We have a proposal before us. This is actually for our year 1 completion of the audit. As you know, we're in year 2. Our contact will be Pat Kirk, who is one of the principals there. And the total fee that they've offered to do our books for is $1,500. I think you beat that. So with that, we just need a motion of approval to appoint them as our independent auditors.
So
Thank you, Jeff.
moved.
Thank you.
Just a,
Let's do a second first.
sorry,
Second.
All right, thank you, Tina. Questions?
just a quick
Yes.
thing. Because it sounds so low, it is so low, partly is because all their auditing is a month's worth of records, and so that's probably 10 transactions total.
Right.
And then they'll come back to us and tell us what they'll take for a whole year, but they've committed to keeping it
They did,
relatively low.
and they've been very cooperative, and the way they explained to me is this is never gonna be what you would call a full-blown audit, like you might do for a municipality, because we have so few transactions, even when we have a full year's worth, that they're sort of doing a modified type of report, enough to comply with the state act, but really not much more than that. So, and they're perfectly qualified to do that.
Every transaction could be a test.
Exactly, yeah, so in fact, I'll give you a copy of the proposal. It's a one-pager.
Dave, and something else that came up in their
Please.
proposal is that the cost, although it's extremely low for this year, it could potentially be higher if in future years we switch to like the standard type of audit, which would be that GASB, that government, Bruce's acronyms.
Yes.
GASB.
So
Government accounting
it's a
standard
form of
board.
GAAP. And what they propose is using the cash basis, which is fine, but that's not the standard that Bruce and similar bodies use. So just we noted that in future years, it's not guaranteed that it's going to be at that level. If in fact we change from a cash to accrual.
Okay.
I don't know why you want to do that.
Right.
That just confuses things, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah, we're
The audits, we're going to issue on Friday, and like to move, it's such a pain, and the information often makes it more confusing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And yeah, it's not like we have a whole lot going on the finance side. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. Not hearing any more questions or comments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. We've asked Bruce to kind of give us an update on city finances. It's been a busy week for him, but he's kindly agreed to give us an overview. So,
Okay, thank you, Bruce. So I was asked basically to give through Q2. Obviously, we haven't closed out Q3 yet. We're close, but we're not there yet. So, I mean, I have some visibility into those numbers and year-end stuff, but like anything, they are projections, not predictions. And they are subject to change for lots of reasons. So I guess I'll start by saying that I was watching last night after a very long city council meeting a couple episodes of the Ken Burns documentary that he just released on country music. And
that's good.
I suggest everybody, if you haven't seen it, to see it. It's it's Ken Burns at his best, and great to sort of have that in-depth aspect to sort of a fundamental cultural touchstone that we all share as Americans. So there was Dolly Parton was featured in some of the last night, and you probably know she's achieved level of fame and success not just because of her voice or music, but she's quite funny, great sense of humor, and often self-depreciating. And so one of she was commenting about how when she was growing up, she kind of modeled her look on the town trolley. She thought that, that person looked really awesome with the makeup and the hair and the clothes and all that. But she got a lot of flack for that as her career had, kind of ascended. And the quote that she said there was, to a critic who was sort of commenting about that style, is, "You don't understand how much it costs to look this cheap." And I say that as kind of in reference to sort of where we are financially as a city, and how the budget projections kind of reflect that through Q2. And what I mean by that is there really is not a lot here that is unusual or crazy, which could not have been said in prior years. And because of a lot of the work that was done by the whole city, obviously myself and my staff, but the mayor and his whole team and what he's led, is trying to get us back to some level of normalcy. And what I mean by that is that in some sense municipality I think should be looked at as kind of like a utility stock. Or something like what you would say back in the day, the widows and orphans stock. Stuff that there really shouldn't change so much year to year. It tends to be outside of extraordinary circumstances, kind of steady as she goes with minor changes. That was not always the case in Harrisburg for a lot of years. And I would say that, this year, and this Q2 report doesn't really have a lot of surprises, as it should be. We are better at sort of making projections. We're better with our expectations. I think a lot of times we were biting off more than we could chew in the early years because you want to, but then you don't really have the capacity to execute. The time sometimes is underestimated. It takes, you receive the revenue, but, and you have thresholds in which you can spend, but because of getting quotes, because of going through legal, because of just complexities of sort of actions that you don't anticipate, sometimes things don't happen. And Jeff is nodding, and he can attest to sort of what I'm saying. So I think that, it's important to note that although we have some long-term, I think, fiscal challenges, I've always said, we were in a period of, of survival for a while, and we'd like to get to sustainability, but I think we are in a period of stability now, and that is good. I think and that's important to note, broadly speaking. So when we get to actually the specifics about Q2, I think there's not a lot to point out. I think our revenue projections are mostly coming in, as we assumed. I would say from the positive, we're probably seeing a little bit more in earned income tax than we would anticipate, than we budgeted for, which is not a bad thing. That's good. I think that speaks to kind of what we understand is happening in the city with individuals with earning income versus retirement income, which is not taxed, moving into the city. So you're having a transition of that ongoing of I think, older individuals to younger individuals who have a different sort of mix of income. And a bit more in LST, so that's, talking about some job growth in the positive. I would estimate from looking at the LST that maybe we could say there's been about 1,500 new jobs, net new jobs created. It's hard to tell because you're sort of extrapolating from what the numbers are telling you, but in terms of the net. On the downside, our real estate is flat. I mean, that is still our single source big amount of revenue. And it is not exceeding expectations. I don't think anyone thought that it wouldn't, but it's sort of confirming that. And at this point, once you get to Q2, you've seen the discount period, which is really the only big, I would say, if you're looking at Q1 information, Q1 really doesn't tell you a lot with the city. It's so early, you haven't spent a lot, you haven't encumbered a lot, you haven't received most of your revenue outside of your discount period window. And of course, that doesn't tell you about your revenue picture because people have a choice of when they want to pay. Now, we have seen over the years that we've gotten more than budgeted in the discount window versus in the flat or penalty, and I think that speaks to the broader general economic climate. If people have the cash flow, they're willing to then pay up front, get the 2% discount, rather than wait. So, but the overall tax base isn't going up in terms of actual assessed value. And we have alerta, so that doesn't accrete positively until years out, and we're still seeing reassessments on some large properties, and so perhaps any benefit that we're seeing on new things coming online is being negated by still reassessments to the downside, which of course not just affects us, affects the county, affects school districts as well. So I mean, we all face that same challenge. We're all pulling from the same tax base. That in terms of revenue, I would say that's what we're kind of seeing through the second and even through Q3. And I'll just tell you that not much is going to be different for that. There's a little bit more of an uptick in some of the more, I would say, economic. They're not huge amounts of money pools, but building permits. The mercantile tax slightly more than projected, so that it's positive. We haven't raised fees, so it has to be activity. It's nothing, it's not a double-digit growth. It's probably not even a 5% growth, but you're talking 2 or 3%. I mean, that's about where we are with GDP broadly. So I think maybe that, that's what but that was, it was flat for a while. So there is actually incremental growth. So that does, I think, speak to activity that is occurring and that you can kind of see around, and here, in terms of the work that's being done both inside residences or structures and some of the other stuff that's happening building-wise externally. In terms of expenditures, those are always very hard to predict. They can be uncertain. You try to, you don't, the worst thing is to under project those, because then you have to go back to council and ask to reappropriate money, and that's never fun. So you're always, we try to budget, conservatively there. But for the most part, I think we're going to spend most of what we're looking to. That we're going to see savings on personnel as we tend to. Now, what was put in the budget last year was that all salaries and wages, from like vacancies, is going to be swept into the debt service fund. So we will spend all our salary and wages by default. It's just we'll build up a little reserve in the debt service fund. One of the debt from the old Verizon tower, it's an uncertain amount that we get from Harristown, and so the concept was there, but our payments are fixed. That could provide somewhat of a cushion if expectations from the rent that's supposed to come from Harristown isn't up to the level by which it was projected when that amortization was worked out a few years ago. And I mean, luckily it's met that, but we're talking about almost a 15-year window there, so it's hard to that's a lot of projection. So that was the concept there. We are seeing some savings maybe in healthcare expenditures. We budgeted high, of course, with the 5-year projections, as you know, we pulled that down to try to not pull from fund balance in out years. So as that delta is shrinking from actual to projected, because our initial projections were higher. Of course, those things, for if you have bad experiences, that can change. So far, we've stayed within our budget, but and you have a couple bad situations, that can be costly for the city. But we do expect to come in under budget there, and we've had looks like significant cost savings in the lost time in medical for police, which had been running fairly high for a lot of reasons, and it has trended down over the years. It speaks, I think, to the commitment of the public to the commissioner to focus on, not just the safety of the citizens, but the safety of the individuals who are working for the city. That was, that's a net positive. Of course, you can have a horrible accident like we had a few years ago, and an officer got into a bad car accident, and we had to pay significant dollars for that. But we've seen savings there in terms of budget to actual. Outside of that, outside the general fund, the biggest, I would say, delta is in neighborhood services. Not so much on the expenditure side, but on the revenue side. We've been an effort to collect old liens. The legal team has worked very hard to try to get that system back to where it was before. A lot of the internal operational stuff in the city has sort of fallen away during the period of financial crisis. And this year we had a big debt, about $2 million of one of the largest entities that we were lien against wanted to sell their properties, so they came to the table. And
Funny how that works.
Funny how that works, yes. So that does accrue to the positive, especially in neighborhood services where if you were looking at the 5-year plan, there really wasn't, we had spent a lot of money to rebuild the sanitation fleet and to rebuild the parks maintenance area, which would have really literally been zeroed out. I mean, there was no money devoted to parks for 6 years. It's a long time. There's a lot of deferred maintenance accumulated there. And so this will help us sort of continue to reinvest in that over the next 5 years, which is good. And hopefully we will see more of that on a go-forward basis. But I'm not sure we'll see that more this year. But that's a good positive. And then I mean, there's going to be some. We're not going to be spending all of the capital projects that we wanted to. Like I said, that can be tough for lots of reasons. And I mean, we didn't get grants for some things, and so they don't occur. If you look at the state of the fuels, we there's something called the East-West Corridor, which is dealing with downtown area with on Chestnut Street, and it's CFA grant, the Commonwealth Finance Agency grant. And we've put in a lot of time in trying to get that, but it has not come through. You know, Save the Fuels was our match, part of that, now that's not happening, so that money accrues to fund balance. We're gonna go back out for the grant again next year, we'll see if we get it. You know, that, you know, so you have some accrued savings there, not necessarily a good thing, but it does, you know, the money isn't lost. And, you know, I guess that's probably, you know, that's probably the highlights. So if you have
Thanks for the update.
questions.
Do you want to talk about how the parking revenues is doing? Specifically?
Right. So I mean, so if you understand how that works, now you're not talking about the you're talking specifically from that we get from the Trimont.
Yes.
The arrangement from
Yes.
the sale. Yeah. I mean, this year, you know, that's always fun. This year it's coming in almost to budget, which is the first time that's happened in the fifth year, right? Fifth year? Is that right? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 6 year. That's good. The system is incrementally, I think that speaks also to economic development in the city. There's more activity, there's more people parking, there's more people willing to pay for the parking. It was such a shock, right, 6 years ago when it went up so much. Now that I think costs haven't been raised in a number of years and there's more activity going on, people are more comfortable paying for some of that. You're still having retention in the garages. You know, I mean, we can have a whole conversation about what will happen next year, or, you know, if they want to raise prices, you know, they have their own, we don't really control that to some degree, and you know, and we're not always necessarily on the same side of, we have sometimes not consumer interest, unfortunately, overall. But this year, the revenue looks like it's hitting our mark on a monthly basis, which is nice, and you know, that's a good thing. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions, Audrey?
I had a quick question about, we were all excited to read about the $2 million RCAP grant that will go to clear out a warehouse somewhere, I'm assuming, metaphorically, because you will now be able to get the money to release the Civil War relics or whatever they are to your
I will let him say.
Well, why don't you explain that?
That's a little complicated.
Okay.
So we have an agreement with the Civil War Museum to sell all of the artifacts to them for $5.25 million, which was a significant discount on the prices that we paid, which was over $20 million. But nonetheless, seemed a fair deal, because it was not a tenable situation, really, that we own everything and they didn't have any stake in the game, so to speak. Plus, they wanted to own the artifacts in part because it would secure their future and theoretically allow them to fundraise. Fantastic, they got $2 million from the RCAP, but that's only $2 million out of the 5.25. And our agreement gave them a period of multiple years to raise the money. And I don't have a lot of transparency onto where they are towards that overall total. But that's certainly a good step along the way. After they purchase the artifacts, that money is then supposed to go, and would go under the agreement, into an account which would fund Reservoir Park improvements and the master plan that we have. So it would be money that would be earmarked for that. And we have about a $8 million to $10 million Reservoir Park master plan, which would completely redo the whole park. And obviously, the Civil War Museum is, and a portion of the money would also go to providing for a capital improvement fund for that building long term, because we would still own the asset of the building. And the agreement also called for them to begin to pay rent. It was a very comprehensive agreement, a good thing for the city, and it's good that they got $2 million, but we don't see it right away. And if anything, if they don't raise the full amount, I would think that money would be in jeopardy. The state money take it back. And they have a certain time limit under the RCAP. So, but that's where we are.
You answered my follow-up question, which is where the asset is residing and where.
We'll see it.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we would be thrilled if they could raise all the money.
Right.
I think they have had, in all honesty, difficulty. And our hope was that they could they could have a sustainable donor base, which would give them sort of long-term sustainability, not so much a one-time grant or reliant even at all on government grants. That was not anticipated by us in the plan. So it's a little problematic in that sense. Because what they really need is, they need the larger Civil War community to buy into what they're doing in order to really be sustainable. But that's the update there.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Other questions? Bruce, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that overview.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Learned a number of things there. All right, next on the agenda is discussion of future initiatives. I know there's been discussion among members and about what are some other things that we should be doing, we should get involved with. Two of those ideas we're going to talk about today. It's come forward about possibly doing listening sessions for this group around the city. And I think we need to talk a few minutes to just kind of discuss that topic as far as what does that look like, how many, that kind of thing. So I don't remember who kind of started that discussion, so everybody chime in.
Well, I know Kathy
Kathy
was.
was passionate about it.
All fingers are pointing at you.
I'm going to out you, and I know, personally, I think that we focused so quickly on first the 5-year financial plan and then the agreement that I sort of feel like we all feel this is an embryonic phase, but this is something that we really want to get our teeth into because, I mean, we're not elected officials, we don't set policy, but we have other options and other avenues where we feel like we can really help the city. And so these were two broad areas that we thought.
I think it's a great opportunity for us, and I know I've talked to various members of the authority about it, in, bits and pieces as we were being formed and then after we were formed. I'm a firm believer in the fact that you need buy-in from the city if you're going to do anything long range. And the idea of listening sessions in my mind was to hold some open sessions and kind of take comments from people. I know it's been really interesting to me. I had one gentleman approach me and say, I think I know you from TV, which was like, okay. And then I said, well, we really do want to hear from people. And this was at the Cupcake Shop, of all places. And he said, yeah, I really think we should be doing more with City Island. I think that's an underused resource that we could do more with, and the park. And I said, that's the sort of thing we want to hear. Whether or not that particular idea is the best in the world, I don't really care right now. I want to hear a bunch of ideas that people have that they think could be better for the city, because I'm still a firm believer, and we have wonderful things in this city, but that's my slice of the world. Other people have other slices of the world, and I'd like to kind of meld those together. I'd like to see if we can't hold them in public places. Part of the number, not controversy, but part of the number designation would be a question of when we do them. It would seem to me if we're talking about a year, probably 3 or 4 is the maximum we can do and do well. And I'd like to see if we can't do them at some different times and different areas of the city, so that it's not just the downtown, it's not just Midtown. I mean, some of the people in downtown and Midtown tend to be pretty vocal anyhow, but I would like to get input from other areas of the city. The uptown, in my estimation, seems to have settled down a bit from where it was a couple of years ago. The Hill section, clearly we want some input. I just, there are sections of the city that I don't know, and I suspect that's true of all of us who are sitting here. So just sit and listen and be a scrivener of ideas, and then start going through those ideas on what's doable and what's not doable. I mean, it's in my mind, a very democratic process that we would do, and then what we would do with the refined information is going to be a question of, what we can do based on the money that's available.
The regulatory issues. People
Yeah.
are always
But
See,
Well, it
I've
could- it
been
could
one of
go-
those which many people don't understand.
But
how
that's something
complicated
It
I
could go
think
both
we can
ways.
discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and for people that don't think we've considered it, I think it's important for them to know what some of those regulatory issues are.
Good, thank you, Kathy. Other thoughts?
Echoing the sentiments of my colleagues. Good idea.
Okay.
It's interesting, having done a lot of citizen engagement in the past, I think the most important thing is to have good communication before the events happen, or else you don't
Yeah.
have participation. So that can be done in a number of different ways. We don't have, as an entity, a lot of mechanisms for the distribution of information, just because we're new and we're small. We could partner with the city, or we could partner with other entities. We could partner with websites or media, and it could be, they can help us get the word out so that when you arrange these sessions, people in the community know they're coming in advance and make sure that they attend and that their voices will be heard. So I'm not giving you a specific, I'm just suggesting that maybe that's some sort of partnership as opposed to just us doing it ourselves.
And I think that would be great, because again, we're engaging more people. If we could get from people even a one-pager on what they want to do, whether it's handwritten or typed, really doesn't matter, that we could look at after the fact, and then maybe limit the presentations to some realistic amount of time.
I've been in listening sessions where they give out slips of paper. Some people don't want to get up at a microphone and talk, it's just not their personalities. So they give out slips of paper and they say, if you don't have time, you feel free to fill out the piece of paper, turn it in, we'll collect them, we'll compile them all, so that everybody feels that you can't sit there for 6 hours. So eventually, that you run out of time, but everybody can have their thoughts heard, and that also encourages those people who don't necessarily want to stand in a microphone and talk in front of a big
We've
crowd.
had, I think, decent public participation in things like when we had the updates to the various zoning plans and that sort of thing. But I want to hear the stuff that's outside of the boxes that we've talked about before. It may be that somebody has a thought that just hasn't fit into anything that has had a public session associated with it so far.
Good.
When would the group think that we might start? I mean, it's going
Well,
to take some planning.
let me throw something out
Please
there.
do.
Unfortunately, we're not a big authority, so there's 5 of us.
Yeah.
So let me suggest this. Kathy and Audrey, if you'd be willing to, now that we've got those other committees, we're done with all that, if the 2 of you would kind of put your heads together and kind of put a draft plan together and bring it back to the group.
With input from anybody else.
Right. But
please.
if the 2 of you would spearhead that, I think that would be good.
Sure.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Good.
Good.
I didn't want to be like, okay, and Jeffrey, can you work this out?
Make it happen.
Make it happen in a week, that's.
We would have given you 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
And I think just on the economic development summit, I think that's something we've all talked about as well. And I think we also see it as perhaps one way for us to have some skin in the game, since we've asked the city to take on this economic development. We can help by trying to figure out a way to collect best practices, hear from people who've done it in similar cities.
Let me give some, that's our next topic, let me give some background on that. When Audrey and I went to Philadelphia and met with the leadership of the Philadelphia ICA, they gave us a wealth of information, but they also told us they're in their 4th year of doing an economic development summit for the city. And it is a really good model, and it had specific outcomes from their summits. And we're fortunate that we have some room in the budget that we could possibly do that for the city and work in partnership with the city to hold an economic development summit. So I'm curious to hear others' thoughts, or Audrey, if you want to add to that, other thoughts on that.
I think similar to the listening session, but we have to engage with the stakeholders of the city who are affected, right, by the financial matters that affect the city. And then the Economic Development Summit is, I think, complementary in a certain way to the listening sessions. I think it's an opportunity to maybe provide a little spark and some inspiration, not necessarily to listen to what our stakeholders have to say, but maybe bring in bring us, our stakeholders together to listen to people from the outside who maybe have expertise or experience that would be, inspiring to us. And then it would also be a public, a public statement that we care about these things, and that there's ideas out there that that are worth our considering.
The Philadelphia model, first of all, the one thing I don't know if we want to consider, but what's coming next, we're going to form a committee. And there's some people left who weren't on the former committee. So, their session was a private session. It was by invite only. I don't know why, I can't remember why they felt to do that, but I think it should be open to anybody in attendance. And then every year they picked a different topic pertaining to economic development. And I think I like Ralph's idea as far as, there are cities across the nation that have succeeded in doing some economic development planning that has really moved them forward, that it might be good to bring somebody in like that. So having said all that, you know where I'm going next. I'm going to say, Ralph and Tina, would you be willing to kind of take that charge on? And,
That's why we're here.
And I'd be more than happy to help as well on that. So, great. Thank you. And any other thoughts on the economic development side? Summit?
I'm thinking maybe we should start with the listening sessions and then see what we get from that.
Including some economic
Yeah,
development ideas.
and then, maybe that could be the culmination of after the meeting. But we can work offline.
I think, I'll ask a question since you guys are going to get together and develop this idea. Is this more of an event, like an annual
It's an annual event.
like an annual event?
That's the way Philly does it.
That we would host sort of someplace where we bring all these people together, the stakeholders and the inspirational people from around the region and the country. And so it's sort of, we call it a summit, but it's sort of a conference kind of thing. Maybe not open door, but maybe just to make sure that the people and public, yes, but we want to make sure that the people who are really involved in either implementing economic development or inspiring others to with good ideas are all in the same place at the same time.
Right.
So it's not to exclude people, but to make sure everybody is coming. So it's sort of an annual event that maybe next year will be the first annual, and then there'll be some sort of annual event after that. I think that'd be terrific. So good. And once again, the more help, the better. So if you do think that there's a way we can partner with others to that, but that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing either. And trying to do everything, the 6 of us or the 7 of us.
Right.
One of the things that I thought about was whether or not we could tie in anyone in the policy planning portions of Harrisburg, Penn State Harrisburg and Middletown. Or, obviously we're going to wind up talking with Harrisburg University about some of this as well. But if we can bring in any of those resources, maybe even some of the law school resources through Widener and Dickinson, that would be absolutely great. Temple, yes.
Yeah.
Which is really terrific.
And the consortium.
Connection all over the world.
Right.
The consortium that's still in Harrisburg,
Yes.
with a number of other universities.
Yeah.
Nice save, Joe, thanks.
Yeah. All good ideas, thank you. Tina and Ralph, we'll turn it over to you. And we'll hear future meeting what we think.
Okay.
All right, great, thank you.
Sounds good.
Going to open it up for any public comments, questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm wondering now what the timeline might be for the finalization of the agreement.
We don't have a timeline. It's a matter of the mayor going through his working sessions and then sitting down with us and a little back and forth, and hopefully not too long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything tentative, hopes, dreams?
To be honest, we've not talked about an end deadline. We
Okay.
want to make sure we get it right
Okay.
for both sides. Okay, any other questions?
I'll say a bit of positive news for the city. We have made an offer, which has been accepted for an economic development director. It's not official yet, so I don't want to release that person's name. But they would be starting, hopefully, in about a week, just finishing up the paperwork. So that person then will be introduced to City Council at their meeting on October 8th. And we can plan to bring our economic development team to the next ICA meeting to make those connections. So we did a national search. We looked for, interviewed multiple candidates from all throughout the country, actually. And but the person we ended up with has local connections, which I think will benefit the city. And just wanted to share that news.
That's great.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's huge for the city. Okay, one additional item for the authority before we adjourn. I want to let you know I've been presented an opportunity that probably would put me in non-compliance with the act. So I hate to have to do this, but I need to, as of today, resign as an authority member with the authority. I'm disappointed having to do this because I've truly enjoyed serving the authority and most definitely serving the city. I appreciate Senator Scarnati's faith in me as his appointment to the authority, and I also want to thank the mayor for the relationship we've had in working in the short time that the authority's been up and running. So I appreciate that. You know, it's funny, when I agreed to serve on the authority, I don't have enough fingers to count how many people said, "What are you doing out here? It's going to be so political." And authorities like that, there's all kinds of infighting, and they tell me, "Well, have you heard what happened in Pittsburgh?" and that kind of thing. I want to tell you, I am pleased with and have enjoyed the most the relationship all of us have had, and working in the short time that we did, and the times we've been together. We have all been driven by the same mission. There's been no personal agendas. There's been no political agendas. And I think that says a lot about the caliber of folks that are sitting around this table. I want to thank each of you for your time and talent. I wish you continued success, and I look forward to the positive outcomes that are ahead from the authority in the city. And I've told a couple people, I think we'd be hard-pressed to find people as enjoyable to work with and as volunteers, as committed as you are to the mission of what this authority is as enacted by the state legislature. So thank you. I love my hometown, and I'll assist you in any way possible to help you move forward.
And we'll hold you to that.
I know. And you know, it's a great
volunteer.
Yeah, it's a great place to live and work, and it's going to be an even better place to live and work. And that being said, thank you all for working with me. So in discussing with our legal counsel a way forward, we decided that we probably should immediately discuss a reorganization. And so with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Jeff as our counsel and parliamentarian, and he will lead us through that reorganization.
All right. So, yeah, as David mentioned, we discussed this briefly, and what I've done for other boards is I've acted as the president of the town simply through the reorganization of the chairman's seat. Once the chairman is elected, then that person will turn the gavel, or I'll turn the gavel over to that person, and we'll do the reorganization for the vice chair position. And I think we currently have the vice chair position filled, but nonetheless, we can do the chair, and then if need be, we'll do the vice chair. So with that in mind, are there any nominations for the position of chair?
I'd like to nominate Audrey Carter. I think Audrey's a natural leader in the vein of our outgoing leader, and I think in her capacity as vice chair, I think it would be just a natural transition to chairing the board. So if Audrey's amenable, I'd like to nominate her.
Okay. And nominations do not need a second, and Audrey, you can certainly say you don't want to do it. We would all be upset. Okay, so are there any other nominations?
Move the nominations be closed.
All right, is there a second on that?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Thank you.
All right. Since there is only one nominee, we will cast unanimous ballot for Audrey. And Audrey, I will let you take the position of election of a vice chair.
Thank you, and thank you, Dave. It will be an honor to try and follow in your footsteps. You set us on an amazing course. You helped us get through that incredibly steep learning curve. And so I think, from my perspective, we now get to get into the fun part of this. So we'll miss you. We will exact penance and keep you involved a lot. And we'll look forward to continuing, all of us, with our friendship with you. And so now that there's a vacancy for vice chair, momentary vacancy, I would like to ask for nominations, if there are any.
I'd like to nominate as the new vice chairman, Ralph Bartan. And when you're ready for comments, I'd like to make a few comments.
A second?
Second.
Comments?
I came into this authority having had some working relationships in the past, and those working relationships were with Tina and with Dave. Audrey was a new person to me. Ralph, I had had very tangential relationships with in the past. And one of the real delights of working on this particular authority has been not only continuing those working relationships with the people that I knew to start with, but also forming new relationships in terms of getting to meet and work with Audrey, getting to meet and work with Ralph. And I think he would serve us very well as vice chairman for the authority.
I echo that.
Are you amenable to accepting
Yes,
the
ma'am.
role? Could I, all in favor?
Aye.
Is that-
New nominations
We had a
because
second.
Yeah.
It was, so it was,
No other nominations.
in essence, right?
Yeah,
I just want to get it right in the minutes.
Just to be clear, no other
Nominations, and it was
Nominations
unanimous,
closed.
and, yeah, thank you very much.
It's always interesting when you have so few. You have the nominee, you have the first, you have the second, and then it's sort of
Put something in the minutes.
what's going to happen on that vote?
Yes. Well, terrific, congratulations.
Yes.
Thank
Ralph.
you, and looking forward to it. I've gotten the opportunity to work closely with Audrey in some of our subcommittee work, and gotten to work with Kathy and Tina, and really had the pleasure of I feel developing a friendship as well as a working relationship. And I think if there's any further compliments needed for Mr. Schenkweiler and his exemplary service and leadership, it's that as he steps away from the position, that there's a wonderful lady ready to take up the mantle and continue it smoothly. So I think it's a compliment both to you, Audrey, and Dave, to you. So anyway, I look forward to continuing to work with the other colleagues, and excited to get back up to full force whenever we have hopefully soon, we have another appointee to step in and get big shoes to fill.
So, yeah.
So point of order, so Dave's appointed by Senator Scarnati,
Right.
so I'll assume that as chairperson, you'll now make sure that we get a replacement appointment
Right.
for Senator Scarnati. For the public's knowledge, it'll be a replacement appointment pursuant to the act from Senator Scarnati's office.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's where our new member will come from.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent. Just wanted that in minutes.
And you can tell we all really like each other, so we're not going to bore you anymore with that. But I do want to let you know that there are 4 of us. We can move ahead. We will not miss a beat. There's no reason to slow anything down. We will obviously be in conversation with Senator Scarnati's office. But, you know, it's sort of like if someone called in sick, we're going to lift a little higher and move forward. So, any other business? And I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Our next meeting will be
Oh, yes.
October
23rd.
23rd, 2019, in this room.
Thank you.